Alright, welcome to the most amazing podcast all around the world where we talk about culture. There is a saying that says that east or west, north or south, home is the best. But we really need to understand where do we come from, what is our origin. There we shall find the real definition of whatever that we have to be doing. We shall find the real purpose as to why we exist. So as we talk about culture, as we talk about everything the way it has to be talked about. So today I'm having a quite a guy who is good in storytelling. So we're just going to go back a bit in those stories which we used to love so much. I think in my school it was around primary 4, primary 3, primary 5. Yeah. This story was amazing where they talked about a guy like guys like Gipiri and Labong where the bead became the problem. So I'm just ready to introduce my storyteller who is going to take us through this. But just know we're going to talk about culture. So, yo, Lois, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm very well.
What do you love about your culture?
It's diverse. It has a lot in it, so I love the diversity of it. It's beautiful.
That's what you love
Yes.
about your culture.
Yeah.
You're from which side of this nation?
I'm from Central.
The
I'm
Central.
Uganda. Yeah.
So, but he's not going to talk about the Central culture. He's going to take us from the east or north. I don't know where there was. I don't remember after school. But let's dive in with Lois to take us through this story as we dive in to know where our cultures come from.
Greetings, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the legend of the spear and the bead. Once upon a time, there was an old man who lived with his clan in a beautiful, fertile, and lush land, teeming with animals and birds in northern Uganda. The land was gifted indeed, with a beautiful river, the Nile, running through it, its blue waters bringing life to the land, sustaining the old man's clan. There are plants and livestock. For a while, the man, his family, and his 2 teenage sons, Labong and Jipil, lived in peace in this paradise they had discovered when they moved south from the land called Bahel Gazelle. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months to years. The old man's health began to deteriorate, and his strength dwindled with each passing day. Soon he couldn't gather enough strength to get out of bed. He summoned his eldest son Labong to speak to him. He told them how he didn't have much time left. Their ancestors were beckoning him. He turned to Labong and gave him a special spear. The spear was the one that symbolized leadership in the clan and had been passed down from generation to generation. It was now Labong's turn to lead and protect the clan. The spear was perfectly decorated with carvings and it glimmered regally in the African sun. Labong had always waited for this moment. It was finally his turn to rule and take care of the clan. He promised his father never to let him down. A few days later, sadly, the old man passed. The tribe had to move on painfully without him. Labong took over leadership, and he was an authoritative leader. But sometimes he let his emotions get the better of him. Luckily, there were no major wars and calamities befalling them. The boys grew into men, took on wives and had children. The fertile land always provided for them plenty of food, and the Nile never dried up. There was plenty for man and livestock. One day, late afternoon, while Labong was out hunting, an elephant strayed out from its herd and found its way to their lush maize garden. The women and children ran to their huts in fear. Gepil, who was resting inside one of the huts, awoke to terrified shrieks and ran out to see what was wrong. He saw the elephant destroying their precious crop. Without any other thought, he ran to the hut where they kept their spears, grabbed one and threw it at the spear. The elephant was injured and it ran away with a spear stuck in its side. Gipil had saved the day. Everyone came out praising him of his braveness. Labong came back to find the homestead buzzing with excitement about the events that had happened. They relayed to him the story of how Gipil single-handedly went against the massive elephant and managed to chase it away. He was stabbed with jealousy because it was he who was tasked with protecting the clan. He went to the hut where the spears were kept, and alas, he discovered his precious spear was missing. At the height of confusion, Gipil had grabbed the royal spear, and the elephant had run away with it stuck to its side. Labong was livid and called upon his brother. He told him how that spear meant everything to the clan and he expected to hand it down to his son. Just like that. Just like their father had done to him. He accused his brother of jealousy and told him he must retrieve the spear. Gipil couldn't believe what he was hearing. How was he expected to trail the injured elephant and recover the spear? The forest south of where they lived was known to harbor big herds of elephants, giraffes, buffaloes, and predators like lions and leopards. But Labong was adamant he wanted his spear. Gipil had no alternative but to bid his wife and kids a tearful goodbye. He didn't think he could make it back, but his brother was demanding for the spear and he had to leave. So off Gipil went into the forest. He searched for days and days, sleeping under the sky, encountering many wild animals. He remained brave at first, but his mission was almost impossible. How could he recover a spear from an elephant in this vast forest? Soon weeks passed by, finally months. Gipil had become emaciated and scrawny. He wasn't eating enough, wasn't sleeping well, and he lived in constant fear for his life. His hands and legs were filled with wounds, which were festering each passing day. With no one to talk to, he was going mad. He cursed his brother and cried for his children he would never see grow. He had reached to a limit and couldn't push himself anymore. Wounded, diseased, and starving, he gave up and prayed his ancestors would welcome him to the next life. One day passed and Gipil wished a lion or a leopard or even a hyena would come along and take him out of his misery. Lady Luck instead smiled his way. An old medicine woman who gathered her herbs in this particular part of the forest found him and he was saved. Gipil thought he was hallucinating and saw his grandmother who had passed come to his rescue. The old woman realized he was incapacitated and in desperate need for help. He could hardly talk or walk, but she burdensomely helped him back to a small hut near the edge of the forest. She tenderly catered to him and nursed him. She treated his wounds, gave him plenty of fluids to hydrate him, and finally he was able to talk. He told the lady of his harrowing story, and she sympathized with his plight. She told him she would provide food and shelter for him while he went in search for his spear. Gipil was delighted with his turn of luck and had re-energized gusto to find the spear. Soon, he was back on his feet and able to hunt and provide meat for them. He resigned his life to the jungle and this strange old lady who reminded him so much of his grandmother and who had saved his life, but he never forgot home. Soon years came to pass. They lived together with their lives falling into routine. They would go into the forest together, with her searching for a special herb, him searching for the spear, where they both gathered and hunted what they would feed on. Days went on and more years came by. One day, while they were in the deep forest, they discovered a pile of huge skeletons. They moved closer to investigate what exactly had happened. The old woman recognized the pile as elephant bones. Gipil moved in closer to identify what exactly happened to this elephant, and there it was, the royal spear. He had finally found it. Gipil couldn't believe his eyes. It seemed like the elephant he had speared had finally succumbed to its wounds and died. Among the pile of bones was the spear, shimmering through the forest light, looking as majestic as it had for years before. He was happy. He broke into dance. He had finally achieved his mission. He could go home. He was so very happy. The old woman was glad he had finally found his spear, but she was sad to see him leave. She had gotten used to having him around. To show her appreciation, she gave him a number of special beads. This was something Jipil had never seen before. The old woman was glad he had finally found his spear, as I've said. Though he was going, these beads had a beautiful, magnificent color, and they shone under the sun. He was so appreciative for the beads because they also reminded him of his traumatic times and how he survived. He gratefully thanked the woman and bade her farewell the next morning. Jipil trekked through the jungle for weeks until he made his way home. The homestead dwellers saw a strange, unkempt man in the horizon and thought he was one of the nomads who was looking for some water, until he came close and they recognized him. A buzz set up the village. Gipil returned. Gipil had come back home. Everyone was happy and highly excited. Gipil came forth and presented the spear to Labong, and his brother couldn't help but grab him into a big embrace. Despite everything, he loved and had missed his brother. He was glad he was alive. Festivities went on for days. The tribe was reunited. Soon days came to pass and activity died down to the mundane. Jipil loved the beads the old woman had given him. They symbolize his endurance and kindness of humanity. He liked stringing them into beautiful patterns. One day while he was stringing the beads, the children came to watch what he was doing. Labong's last born and favorite child, a toddler daughter, was among them and started playing with one bead, like all toddlers do. She put it into her mouth and accidentally swallowed it. One of the other children saw her doing this and called out to Gipil and told her she had swallowed one of his beads. Gipil, still filled with bitterness about what his brother had done, saw his chance for revenge. He went to Labong and told him what had happened. He demanded for his precious bead. Labong didn't want to be bothered with trivial matters and told him that the bead would soon pass. He would get it. Gipil wasn't having it. He said he needed his bead at that moment. Exactly. Labong had to find a way of getting it from his daughter's stomach. That is when it sank in what Gipil was telling him to do, to cut up his 2-year-old daughter and retrieve the bead. He couldn't believe his brother, but it was like the roles had reversed, and this time someone was surely going to die. Labong pleaded for his brother to reconsider for hours, but Gipil reminded him of how Labong had doomed his life by sending him into the jungle for the spear and remained obstinate. He needed his bead at that right moment. Labong had nothing to do but to give up his daughter to be cut up, and they retrieved Gipil's bead. It was finally retrieved, but the clan was never the same again. Labong couldn't stand out living with his brother, and the grief of losing his precious daughter was too much. They decided to part ways. They buried an axe at a place presently called Wang Lei in Pakwach, on the shores of the Nile. Gipil and his family took the area west of the Nile and became the Alua in northern Uganda, parts of Sudan and eastern DR Congo. Labong and his family went to the area east of the Nile, moving southwards, then eastwards into Kenya. Gipil and Labong were ancestral fathers of all Luo, and this explains why the dialect is hardly different between the different tribes. Acholis, Chapadolas, Itesots, Langi, Alua, and many others having similar words for different things are related by their ancestry to Gipil and Labong. Wanglei, the place where the brothers parted ways, is located near the town called Pakwachi. Rituals and animal sacrifices are still performed in this area to pay homage to the ancestors. They pray wisdom in leadership, justice, kindness, and love. Caretakers reaffirm the story and show you the place the axe is believed to be standing under the flow come rush of the Nile. And that has been our story of the legend of the spear and the bead. I'm wondering what have you guys picked out of this? Because we see two brothers, both united, two brothers, same mom, well, may not be sure, but same father. They grew up together. Then because of jealousy and anger, Labong sends his brother out to go fetch a spear. It takes years and years until Gipil finds this spear. He comes back. I believe his brother was really regretting what he had done, because this embrace he gave him was something very, very deep. But still that could not deter the heart that had been hardened by the problems that had transpired on all that time, where Gipil was almost going to die. So Labong comes, he receives his brother with great love. He really missed his brother. I don't think he even considered the spear at that time. But the hatred, the pain was still deep within Gipil. One time, a chance happens to come by, a chance for revenge. And this one is actually very, very painful. A young child, just as we see them rolling along the floor, coming to see what uncle is doing. Uncle is playing with the beads, and the kid puts the bead in the mouth. I don't know, and suddenly he swallows the bead. And then one kid sees cousin has swallowed your bead, Papa. And then Papa suddenly gets angry. It's supposed to have been the kids who said, "Give me the bead of my father." And the father would have come and said, "It's easy. It will come out soon." But that time, Gipil lost all common sense. He wanted to avenge the time he had spent in the forest. He went to Labong. Labong thought these were matters of joking. But Gipil was serious. He needed his bead back. He tried to say, "Man, the kid will pass the bead and you'll get it back." But Gipil wanted it there and then, and he didn't want any other explanation but to see his bead out. Finally, Labong was overwhelmed, and I think he gave in his young child to Gipil. Maybe, hopefully, having this, that maybe he will be sympathetic. But alas, the pain was too much. Gipil was blinded by hatred and revenge. He killed his nephew or niece. And just like that, the brotherhood died. And we see it till today, though luckily there is peace in the current age, but it's still there deep within. So what is our takeaway? Our takeaway is learn to let go. Personally, that's what I take away. Learn to let go. If something doesn't take your life and doesn't have to affect your next life, just let it pass. Learn to forgive. If God has given you another day, that should be enough for you. And also, let's not pay evil with evil. Then that trade will never end. Let's pay evil with God. That's the best revenge, I believe. That's the best revenge. So, shout out to you all who have listened in. May God bless you. Nice time.